dugsiga boardingka iyo maalinlaha ah ee Amano Boarding and Day School.
From Amano Boarding and Day School, my name is Teacher Moses, and welcome to our online classes. Kindly students, Form 1 students, today we are going to learn about something that is very interesting, about passive voice. Those who are watching on YouTube, kindly like our page, our channel, and subscribe. And for our students, on the website we have this lesson, and there is a handout where there is an assignment that you should do, and do it in time, and submit to your parents. Make sure that also as you watch this video that you leave comments there, and I will be able to comment and reply to you if you need any clarification or me to explain anything that maybe you did not understand during the lesson. You're free to leave your comments there. Back to our lesson, passive voice. Listen to this sentence. He drew a picture. He drew a picture. That sentence is in active voice. That sentence is in active voice. Now leave it there. We'll come back to that. When we are learning about active voice, there are some things that we need to remind ourselves. For us to be able to understand passive voice, we need to remind ourselves about some few things here. One of them is simple sentence constructions. The subject in a sentence. You need to know the subject in a sentence, the object, and the verb. So and you also need to know or to remind yourself about past participle. Past participle form of verbs. Past participle form of verbs. For example, eat, ate, eaten. Eat is simple present, ate is simple past, eaten is participle form. So past participle form, eaten, eaten. So we need to remind ourselves about this. The subject in a sentence, for example, he kicked the ball. He kicked the ball. He kicked the ball. So now all you need to remind yourself about this is that he is the subject, kicked is the verb, and ball is the object. Simple. Subject, verb, object. And we have here the article there. Now, very good. Having known that, having reminded ourselves about that, we need now to go back to our lesson. What is passive voice? I said he kicked the ball. There is a funny picture here. Look at it clearly, carefully. I wrote passive voice, passive voice, passive, active voice, active voice. I wrote the paper. Passive voice, the paper was written by me. Then inner voice, I'm gonna fail. That's quite funny. Inner voice is quite funny. I'm gonna fail because I'm the one who wrote the paper. That's on a light note. Now, this is passive voice. I want to explain how you change active sentences into passive voice, active statements into passive voice. Now, sorry, we need to learn. Now, by the end of the lesson, yes, our lesson objective is very clear. By the end of the lesson, we should be able to know how define passive voice and change sentences from active to passive voice. So you should be able to change sentences from active voice into passive voice. That is what you need to know. Now, passive voice. Let's look at the sentence below. I drank 2 cups of tea. I drank 2 cups of tea. That is an active sentence. Why do we know that it is active? We know it is active because it has started with the subject. Now, this is an active sentence and it has the subject the first person, then we have the verb, followed by the verb, and finally the object, the person or thing that the action happens to. That is the object. He kicked the ball. He is the subject. The ball is the object. It was the thing that the action happens to, and the action is to kick. So simple. Now, so in this example, the subject is I, the verb is drank, and this object is 2 cups of coffee. So just like the example for he kicked the ball, that's another example. But we don't always need to make sentences this way. We might want to put the object first. There are reasons why sometimes we have to write sentences in passive voice, and I'm going to explain that. The reasons or the situations, the circumstances that leads us to write sentences into passive voice. But we're going to go to that. Just hold on to that. Now, sometimes you don't need to write sentences in active voice. That is what all this explains. That is what all that explains. Now, 2 cups of coffee were drunk. You see, we can add by me if we want. By the way, in passive voice, you can add the subject if you want. Sometimes you might just leave it like that. That's why 2 cups of coffee were drunk. You can add by me, but it is not necessary. How to make passive sentences in English? Now, this is where I want us to dwell, because it is very important for our lesson today. How to make sentences in passive, how to make passive in English. Now, we make the passive by putting the verb to be into whatever tense we need, and then adding the past participle for regular verbs. We make the past participle by adding ed for to the infinitive, so play becomes played. Now, this is what all this explains, that for us to make sentences into passive voice, number 1, we need to begin with the object. Begin with object. So forget about an active sentence where the subject begins. So we'll begin with the object. Then, for example, he kicked the ball. I need to change ink color. Object. Yes, object. For example, he kicked the ball. He kicked the ball. That is active voice. It changes to the ball was kicked. So you begin with object. Number 1. Then was. Number 2 is verb. This is object. This is verb. And was kicked. The ball was kicked. Yes, like that. Then you can add number 3 if you want. Sometimes it isn't necessary. If you want to add the subject, you can say by him. The ball was kicked by him. So that is passive voice. Active is he kicked the ball. Active, he kicked the ball. Passive, the ball was kicked by him. I hope we are together. So now we need to explain. I need to explain further. Yes, very good. These are examples of sentences in different tenses, both in active and passive voice. So I need you to check these very fast, very carefully. Present tense. I made present tense. I made a cake. I make a cake. A cake is made by me. Present continuous. I am making a cake. A cake is being made by me. Past simple. I made a cake. A cake was made by me. Past continuous. I was making a cake. A cake was being made by me. Present perfect. I have made a cake. A cake has been made by me. Present perfect continuous. I have been making a cake. A cake has been being made by me. Now in your handouts there is full this table. Just read it carefully up to the end. Examples in all these tenses about active and passive voice. Now verbs with 2 objects. Some sentences are very special. They have 2 objects. For example, a verb. For example, there's an example here. He gave me the book. He gave me the book. He active voice, he gave me the book. That means this sentence has two objects. One is me and the other one is the book. So in this case, you choose which one you want to. You can choose either for the two objects to be the subject of the passive sentence. For example, passive, I was given the book by him, or the book was given to me. So it's for you to choose which one you want, because the sentence has two objects. So you choose which object that you want to have. Now, when should we use passive? Yes, this is very important. This is the last part of this tutorial. When should we use passive voice? Number one, when we want to change the focus of the sentence. Sometimes we may want to change the focus of the sentence, so that when someone listens or when someone reads our sentence, they may focus on a certain a certain thing. For example, in our case, the reader or the listener focuses on the object. Mona Lisa was painted by Leonardo da Vinci. We are more interested in the painting than the artist in this sentence. You see, the Mona Lisa is the name of the painting. The Mona Lisa is the name of the painting. So in this case, we want to focus on the name of the painting, not the artist himself, Da Vinci, not Leonardo da Vinci, who is the artist who drew it. So that is number one, when we want to change the focus of the sentence. Number two, when we should use the passive voice. Yes, when who or what causes the action is unknown or unimportant or obvious, or people in general. Yes, for example, he was arrested, obvious by the police. Sometimes we already know that who is the subject. So sometimes we already know who is the subject. He was arrested by the police. We already know who arrests. So the bike has been stolen, the road is being repaired. Okay, now number three, in factual or scientific writing. Sometimes we may want to use a passive voice in factual or scientific writing. For example, the chemical is placed in a test tube and the data is entered. You see, you don't need to explain who is doing that. Now, the last use for passive voice is in informal writing. Informal writing, instead of using someone, people, they, these can be used. For example, there should have been an example for that. So it is used for informal writing when we don't want to mention the subject or the person who has written the letter. So thank you so much for your time, and I do hope that you will go through the handout carefully and do the exercise and the assignment that is in there. Thank you so much, and goodbye.